Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf. I know it's Sunday, but there will be no Books Weekly this weekend, mainly because I hardly read anything. I strained my back at the beginning of the week and couldn't move, which is, you think, perfect for reading because you have to lie down all the time. But I had to take painkillers and they made me so woozy that the only thing I could concentrate on was Netflix, which was also great, but no Books Weekly. But anyway, I wanted to do a sort of a 3 months wrap up anyway this weekend. So as you know, I don't normally do wrap ups, but I thought, well, a quarter of the year has passed and it's a good time to reflect on the books that I've read in the first 3 months. And I'm not going to talk about all of them because my videos are long as it is already. I read 50 books, so no worries here. First of all, I focused on books that were published in the first 3 months, and then I picked two that I really liked, one that was a disappointment, and one that surprised me when I went through the list. So 4 books. I think we can handle that in one video. Okay. The first book that I want to mention, one of the books that I really liked in the first 3 months, is a debut novel by Tiffany D. Jackson, Allegedly. It came out in January. Tiffany D. Jackson is a black American writer from Brooklyn, and Allegedly follows the story of Mary Beth, a 16-year-old girl who has been in prison since she was 9 because she allegedly killed a baby girl that was a baby that was in her care. Mary Beth, as I said, is now 16. She's now no longer in prison, but she lives in a group home with other young criminals. And the story is told from Mary Beth's perspective. We learn a lot about the life in the group home. That's really very gripping and very well written. But we also learn about the past, Mary Beth's troubled relationship with her mother, and slowly we learn what really happened that fatal afternoon when the baby died. Mary Beth is an unreliable narrator. I have trouble sometimes with unreliable narrators, but Tiffany Jackson really did a superb job, I thought, with making the story gripping, even though you have doubts whether Mary Beth is telling the truth. So I thought that was a really good, almost perfect debut novel, sort of a crime suspense element to it that I really liked. The pacing was good, the writing was really very good. I gave it 4 stars, and maybe I should say that I'm very stingy with 5 stars. I think last year I gave only a handful of books 5 stars. It has to be something, yeah, really extraordinary for me to give it 5 stars. So don't be put off if you look at Goodreads and see that Allegedly only got 4 stars from me, because 4 stars means that I really like the book and that I can recommend it. The second book I want to talk about is Claire Fuller's Swimming Lesson. It was published in February of this year. Claire Fuller is a British writer. She published her debut, Endless Numbered Days, in 2015, which I haven't read. So Swimming Lesson is her second book and the first book I read by her, and I really liked it. The book is told from 2 alternating perspectives. One perspective is from Gil, sort of a bit run-down, middle-aged professor who lost his wife, Ingrid, 12 years previously. She went to the beach and disappeared. And the book opens when Gil is in a bookstore and he thinks he sees his wife. He follows that woman, he has an accident, then his 2 daughters, Flora and Nan, come to visit him because he's not doing well. Turns out he not only suffers from the consequences of the accident, but that he is also sick. And we learn a lot about the relationship between Gil and his 2 daughters. That part is mainly told from the perspective of Gil and Flora, the younger daughter. And alternating with that, we have letters written by the wife, Ingrid, who disappeared and who presumably drowned herself in the sea. And the letters obviously have been written before she disappeared. And those letters tell us about the marriage, about Gil not being a very good husband, and how they met, and then he cheated on her, and how they split, and the daughters. And so it's a book about marriage and family relationships with a bit of a suspense twist, because obviously we want to know what really happened to Ingrid, and we will learn that in the end of the book, but I won't tell you in order not to spoil you. There were a lot of people who did not like the book as much because they said, well, we've seen that story before, a younger woman falling in love with her professor and the marriage doesn't work. Yeah, I know that's true, but somehow for me the story worked, even though it is a bit of a stereotypical plot line. I thought the writing was really beautiful. I thought the letters Ingrid wrote especially, I love to read them. I love to learn more about those characters. But I also love the other parts in the now, where we see Gil and his life and the daughters who try to come to grips, first of all, with the disappearance of the mother 12 years earlier, but also with the father who is ill, and these family dynamics I thought were really interesting. So I know for some people the book didn't work, but for me it did. Sue me. The next book I want to talk about was unfortunately a bit of a disappointment, and because of that I'm interested whether you read it and what you thought of it. And that book is Little Deaths by Emma Flint, also a debut novel. It has received a lot of praise. It's on the long list for the Bailey's Prize for Women's Fiction. So obviously people saw something in the book that I didn't. The book is set in the 1960s, and we have Ruth, a single mother with 2 small children, and the book's story is about the fact that one morning those 2 children disappear. There's a police investigation into the disappearance because the children turn up dead, so had been a murder, and Ruth very quickly comes into focus of the police investigation. That part I thought was interesting because it gives some reflection on the position of women in the 60s, because Ruth is regarded as a bit of a, not conforming to the rules that apply to women in the 60s. She is, first of all, a single mother, and then she has various relationships with men. She works in a bar. So the investigation turning against her is a reflection of how women were looked at, and especially women like Ruth were looked at in the 60s. I thought that part was interesting enough. But this book is also a double perspective book, and the other part of the book is from the perspective of a tabloid reporter, Pete, who is sent by his newspaper to report on the crime and who gets completely obsessed with Ruth. I thought this part was completely superfluous. I didn't think it added anything. It distracted from the main story. So that was one reason why I didn't like the book. The other reason was that the book is set up as a crime story, a thriller, with the murder of the 2 little children. And the worst thing that you can say about a crime novel, I think, is that it's boring. And I thought the book was boring because very early on you get clear idea of what had happened. And I read the book and thought, oh, please don't let it be what I think. And it turned out exactly what I thought was what really happened to the children. The writing was good. And I will certainly, read a second novel by Emma Flint. But this one, it just didn't work for me, and I was really surprised to see it on the Bailey's long list. But if you read it and if you liked it, I'm really interested to hear your opinion. And to end on a positive note, the book that surprised me when I looked through the list, and that book is um, Susan Parabo, The Fall of Lisa Bellow. I reviewed this book in one of my books weekly. It came out in March. Susan Parabo is mainly known for her short story collections and well known for her short story collections. And I was looking forward to a novel of hers. When I reviewed it in one of the books weekly, I didn't like it that much. It's the story about Meredith, a high school girl, and she's not very popular, and her nemesis, Lisa Bellow, the very popular girl. And one afternoon, they both end up in the same diner, and there is a robbery. A masked man enters the diner, robs the cashier, knocks down the owner of the diner, and the two girls are forced on the floor, and the man takes Lisa with him and leaves Meredith there on the floor. And what follows then is the story of Meredith, how she tries to cope with that incident, the fact that she was left and survived, and that Lisa is gone and we never hear of her again. What I did not like, as I said in my review, was the fact that we have these multiple perspectives. I'm so tired of all these multiple perspectives. We have the mother, we have Meredith, we have the brother of Meredith who had a horrible accident when playing sports, and we have his story. It was just too much. But coming back to what I started with this book is the surprise. I don't know whether you recognize that you don't really like a book, and sometime later when you think of it, it's still stuck in your head. The story somehow is still stuck in your head, and that's what happened with this book with me. When I looked through the list of all the books that I've read in the first 3 months, and there was one book that I thought I really want to reread, and that was this book, although I did not like it that much. So I'll give it another try. The book came out in March, so maybe one of you already read it and has opinions of it, so let me know. But yeah, this was sort of the surprise on the list, which is always good, I think. But anyway, these were the tops and the flops of the first 3 months of 2017. I will be back with the Books Weekly next Sunday. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Talk to me in the comments if you want to, as always, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.